Hello. I'm so glad you're here today to get the next lesson in the parenting class and the trainings that I'm doing. We have talked about a lot of things up to this point, behaviors and needs and self-esteem, and we've looked at a lot of things about ourselves and a lot of things about our children, our families, and what we can do to be better parents and maybe do some things differently. So today we're going to talk about behavior management and give you some tools to use to try and implement some of these things that we found out about ourselves and our kids and our family. So we're going to talk about behavior management and what that is. We're going to talk about discipline and punishment, rewards, and we probably won't get through all of that, and then also family rules. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the behavior management. We talked about how we have needs and we have payoffs for when those needs are met, or when they're not met, we don't get our needs met. And so behavior management is about trying to help our children to manage their behaviors when they're having them for whatever reason, whether it's at that time they're not getting what they want or what their needs are. And it's one of the most important responsibilities of a parent. Children need to learn right from wrong, and the parent is the one who will be teaching that to them. Hopefully. If not, then whoever their caregiver is. So if we can do that as a parent, we're going to help them grow up and be healthy adults and be able to work within their communities and their schools, their activities. We talked about that. Some of our behaviors are taught to us. Anger, violence, that kind of thing can be taught. As well as kindness, love, and consideration for others. So if we need to work on that, this is going to help us also, because we want our kids to have good behavior management, and if we have good behavior management, they will learn from us. So some of the ways that we can help them with that is the way that we discipline them. Some people call it punishment. Excuse me. There is a definition for punishment and a definition for discipline, and I will cover that. So the definition of discipline is the rules, guidelines, and standards for acceptable behaviors that parents establish for their children. So we as parents are going to establish these disciplines. We have to decide what our choices are in those disciplines and what works for us and our child through forming some kind of boundaries with our discipline. And we also have to make sure that our children learn to act and behave in a social acceptable manner. So when you're out in your community, you're able to interact and take them out to other different places and have some appropriate behavior going on. For example, they might be have their include responsibility in their schools, and they've been given a job to do, and hopefully they'll be able to have some kind of social, social acceptable manner that they can actually proceed with that job, whatever it is. So in the future, the discipline that we put on them as children now makes a lot of difference. So we need to be aware that everything that we do with them as children leads them into being healthy adults. So some of the types of discipline we're going to talk about. We did talk about spanking and why there's a lot of misconceptions and myths about spanking your children. There's even some justifications around religion about spanking your children. But the truth is that spanking is not a good discipline. It's usually a discipline that is causing some pain and abuse in the child's emotions and their bodies. And as adults, it is very hard not to cross the line if you're angry, and so it is best that we try different kinds of discipline, so we don't have to do that type of punishment. And that is what punishment has a definition, that it is a penalty administered by a parent to a child when the child has chosen to break one or more of the rules. So let's say your child breaks your rules or your guidelines, and you administer this punishment. The punishment, if you've decided that you're a spanker or you do spank, then that's the punishment. The punishment may include other types of discipline like timeout, taking away their privileges, putting them, making them pay for a broken object, or any number of things like that. So how we punish them has to do with the discipline that we've decided on. And discipline should be agreed on by both parents or grandparents, whoever it is that's spending time with the children, that the discipline should be known and taught to those who are watching the children, so they have a consistent discipline, because we talked about that consistency is important, that they know what to expect. And so we need to make sure that we're doing that consistently, using that same discipline, whether it's the parent, the grandparent, or whoever's taking care of them at that time. Okay, so we've established that we have to have some kind of discipline, and what a punishment could be for breaking the rules or not following through with what the rules are. And if it's an older child, it could be different punishment than a younger child, because they have to be age appropriate for that punishment, and be able to understand exactly what the rule is, what the punishment is, and be able to actually make choices like that So it has to be appropriate age. So after 3.5, they start being able to make some choices like that and know exactly what the discipline is, and what the punishment is for breaking that rule. In a timeout situation, if it's something that's immediate, like they broke something, they hurt someone, or they hurt themselves because they did something, or almost hurt themselves because they did something inappropriate that broke the rule. Sometimes timeout has to be immediate, so they know why they're going to timeout. If it's a timeout for just doing a minor behavior that you've talked to them about before, you can warn them 2 times. The 3rd time they go to timeout, and that is the time that is appropriate to their age. So if they're 2 years old, it's no longer than 2 minutes. If it's their 3-year-old, it's 3 years old. And then after that, you start giving them choices, consequences, and they could still take time out, but by then they know for sure what the rules are and if they're breaking them or not. So sometimes their punishments will be different. It has to be something that they care about, like their toys or their favorite, and it has to be appropriate with what they did. So if they broke something, you're going to maybe not give them allowance, or they're not going to be able to buy any treats for a week because that money has to go to pay for that. Or if they injured their sister by jumping off the couch on top of her, she may not be able to be allowed to play in that area for a week or something like that. So it has to be appropriate to the act, to the or to the rule that was broken, and appropriate to their age. Okay, so you get to establish those things when you make your rules. Okay, so you will know clearly when they've broken a rule and what their punishment's going to be. So you need to be clear on it, all the parents, anyone taking care of the child, and then the child needs to know what that is also. So everyone's on the same page. Okay? And then when they do follow the rules and they're helpful and they've done lots of things to help you out that day, they might be rewarded. So that is another type of discipline in a way, because you're rewarding them for following the rules. You're rewarding them for helping you out. And so that gives them good self-esteem. It makes them want to help others. And so rewarding them when they do have good behavior is very important. To encourage that behavior, you want to reward them. Not every time they do something, but in a long-term situation. Some people keep charts and they give them stickers for good behavior or for things they do to help, and after so many, then they get a reward. So that you can work out within your family also. So the difference between punishment and discipline, we got that, right? That that the discipline is the behavior management. It's what you've come up with that will help change the behavior. The punishment is the actual follow through of what that is that you came up with, and deciding when that is going to be implemented. Okay. So then we have to make sure that all of that is consistent and there's a balance in all of it. So if dad is implementing the punishment for a rule that's been broken, and mom comes home and she tries to intercede and take over and take away that punishment, not knowing the situation, that can mess up the whole thing. So you have to both be on the same page, and you have to be able to allow the other person to follow through, as long as you're both doing the same punishment that you've agreed on that falls into appropriate age group, okay, and it's not abusive. That is not something you ever want to agree to. Okay, so non-abusive punishments. So nothing like holding them down, putting your hand over their mouth, slapping them, hitting them in any way, locking them in a closet, isolating them for a long period of time, longer than their age. That could all be considered abusive. Okay, so the goal is to have rules, discipline, punishment that is helping teach them but not be abusive, and to help them understand that you love them, you care about them, and you're following through with teaching them how to be respectable, loving, caring individuals when they grow up. Okay? So when you go to make your rules, you're going to need to figure out what is a fair rule. Okay, so what is fair for their age group? What is fair for you as the parent? So it's like there's a lot of teachers that might keep children in during recess when they've done something wrong. But that is the time when the teacher usually gets a break to correct her papers or do some other thing. So if she chooses to keep the child in during recess, she's kind of punishing herself. That's how I feel about that. And so you have to think about that too. If you decide on a punishment that is putting you in timeout for when you need to get something done, then that might not be appropriate for that situation. They get old enough that they can go to timeout by themselves, and they can sit there for the amount of time that you've given them. When they're very little, still learning what timeout is, at like 2 years old, you may have to encourage them to go, and you may have to help them walk over and go to the spot that you've given them. It's a good idea to always be consistent about where you're going to have that place be. If you're in another place at someone else's home, or you're at the park or somewhere else, then you're going to have to establish a place there wherever you're at. But in your own home, you should have a regular, consistent place so the child can eventually go there on their own. So we want to have fair rules for everyone. We're not going to change the rules for Susie and not for Joey for the same exact rule being broken, unless they're extremely different ages, like, if they're Joey's 1 and Susie's 3 or 4, there might be different punishments and disciplines. Okay, so the rule must be clear and consistent. Okay, so the way that happens is whoever's watching the children come together to make these rules and agree upon them. And if the children are old enough, they get to have some input, because they might know something that isn't on your list that they have done that you did not like. So they know there's a rule that needs to be made, and that helps them know what the rule is, what they can and cannot do, which leads up to how to make your rules. So the first thing that you're going to do is make a rules chart. And at the top of the chart, you're going to put family rules across the top. And then you're going to put a line across that. Then you're going to separate that page by a line, and you'll have two columns. One is the do's list, and one is the don'ts list. Okay? So for every do that you have a don't. So if you write, use gentle touch for do, then on the don't side you're going to have hit, don't hit. Okay? And on the do side you might put talk in a normal voice. That is a do. That's something you want them to do. The don't would be whine or yell. Don't whine or yell. So you could see they're opposites. And having the do's and the don'ts makes it clear for the child and you whether they've broken the rule. Okay? And they will understand better if they know what they can do and what they shouldn't do. So these are some examples. You have to come up with the ones that your family needs together. So the first one you're going to do, each of you will do yourself. And this is the tentative list. So you're going to be brainstorming on your own what to do, what not to do. Okay, so you will come up with a list, the wife, the husband, the grandparent, whoever it is that takes care of the kids. And you can even let the kids have their own little input on this, okay? If they're able to, or have somebody sit with them and write it down for them. Then once you do the tentative, everyone does that, you then take the same type of chart and you make your actual rules for the family. Okay? So everybody has something at the table they brought about what the rules should be, and then you all agree together which rules those are and put them on your rules list. Now, you can make those out of anything you want. You can be creative and make it on a chalkboard or a whiteboard, or you can make your own little poster. You can make a rewards chart for the stickers when they do things that you love to recognize and reward. And you get to decide how many of those they get before they get rewarded. And some of the rewards can be fun to figure out. What do they get to do, or what do they get to have, or what don't they have to do? Maybe they don't have to do their chore. So you can also have a chore chart for even the little ones. You can have a chore chart that says, Joey will set the table every night this week, and Susie will, maybe she's younger than him, and she gets to put the silverware on and help him. Something that she could do that's age appropriate for her. So you have to come up with these things for them to do. So that's a lot of stuff. You can make your disciplines and decide what the punishments are. You can make your rules. You can make your rewards. You can make your chore chart. You have lots of things you could do now. And you could think about some of those disciplines we talked about. What would be age appropriate for the children that you have? And we will talk more about other types. But that's a lot of stuff for for one lesson. So think about that and maybe sit down and try and work those different charts out and different roles, and be creative with it. Okay. You have a beautiful day, and I will see you again soon. And I hope you learned something that's going to help your family work together well.